article from The Mighty by Katie Paulson, dated December 4, 2015. When you eat with your child with sensory processing disorder. There aren't many things that can frustrate a mum more than a child who just won't eat, can't eat, or refuses to eat or touch his food. Welcome to my household. My son V is 3 years old, and to date he will only touch crackers, dry cereal, Cheetos, and grapes with skin. If you place anything on his plate that appears slimy or has a weird texture or is simply unpleasant to his liking, he will not touch it and will not feed himself. I imagine when he looks at his plate, it must appear like this. Where is your logic if a child was to look at a plate filled with lolly snakes? They would face dive into that. Kids love lollies. Maybe you should have thought about what foods were appropriate for his age group. Maybe you should have researched. That is the only logical reason I can think a child would not want to feed himself. Worms. In V's little mind, which is actually very large, I'm starting to believe all food that is of undesirable texture has to look like worms. The food must be slimy, slithering, and is most certainly trying to wiggle its way into his mouth, down his throat, and into that tummy so empty it growls. The worms must be so large and unpleasant that it causes him to wince in sheer agony if something as disgusting as yogurt would even have the nerve to simply graze or touch his gentle skin on his fingers. Oh my God, Katie, you're trying so hard to be a writer. But do you know what? It's lacking emotion. And that is what makes a great writer, when they are able to pour their heart onto a page. And there's no heart. There's no flow. There's just a lot of cliches and attempts at trying to describe something. You're not present in the moment, in my opinion. There have been moments of sheer panic on his face and real tears when he sees food on his fingers. It's not just food on fingers, though, that terrify B. Don't let those wormy worms slither on the table near him. That diabolical milk better not drip on his shirt, or a scream of sheer panic may exit those tiny vocal cords. The worms control our lives. As meals take more than an hour, we work diligently to teach him they are not worms, but in fact, food that is yummy and tasty. It is chock full of vitamins, proteins to help him grow big and strong. Yet, despite the months of work, we are in no better position than we were 6 months ago when we started feeding therapy. Don't you just drop him off for therapy? I don't think that you are present there when he is doing therapy. I don't think you know what is going on. I think that you rely on everyone else to teach your son. I believe that there was no teaching from you as a mother to your son. You were comparing him to other children constantly. That's all you were doing. Looking around, seeing who's looking at you. Your way of understanding does not fucking come close to what is going on in reality, Katie. You are so disconnected. And I wish that you could recognize that you needed help dealing with your son's diagnosis. You took a hard hit when you found out that he was not well and that he was going to be not well for most of his life. But you focused on that word, not well. You focused on the negative words, Katie. It's impossible if you don't learn how to rewire your mind. Enable to think better, to feel better, to have a better perspective on life. Your son, he needs a mum that's present. And you are just not present, in my opinion. V still will not touch those dang worms. And he still cries when many foods even touch his tiny fingers. Yet every day we are still feeding V nearly every single bite of food. Nearly every meal will take us more than an hour. He not only won't touch the food, but many foods he simply won't chew or swallow. Well, maybe you should go on Google and start looking into why. Da-da, 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 da-da. Food is a touchy subject in our home. Fucking cliche. Food is a touchy subject in our home. It makes my skin crawl thinking about having to sit another hour at the table coercing him to eat. Coercing him to eat. We have these amazing safe foods. Foods that are safe and not worm-illed in V's eyes. They are tasty and delicious morsels of food he will so willingly hoard and stuff his mouth full of. And unfortunately, they offer little to no nutritional value. The funny thing is, prior to V, I ate organic and cooked fresh. My child was going to eat organic too. My child was going to be green. Just a little side note, Katie talking about before she got pregnant, she was a crunchy mum. I'll link that article down below. Yet here I am, 3 years later, with a child who will only feed himself Cheetos, Reese cereal puffs, grapes, Sun Chips, and crackers. Choking hazard alert. Ding, 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 ding. What the fuck, Katie? Cheetos, Reese cereal puffs, grapes, Sun Chips, and crackers. If you place any other food in his face, I guarantee he believes the worms are coming for him. Prior to having V, I had never heard of sensory processing disorder. I didn't know a neurological response to stimuli could possibly make life so difficult to manage. There was never a moment I considered a noise, food, texture, movement, or sight could either send my child spiraling out of control or force him to seek that stimuli so much he can't interact with anything else. Written in bold, this is different than having a quirk. This is a debilitating condition that rules every single part of V's life. It most notably controls his diet. He isn't a picky eater, far from it. He's terrified of certain foods, and if you present the food in a way he finds offensive, you will be lucky if he will ever eat the food again. His diet is boring. Each and every day, my child eats the exact same foods he's deemed safe. Well, let me just tell you this, Katie. I'm pretty sure that your son is a Libra. Most Librans love a routine. I am actually on the cusp, Libra Scorpio, and I eat the same food every single day. Like, maybe you should understand different personality traits, because that is a personality trait. Eating the same food every day. And do you know why I do it? It's because I don't want to waste my brain energy trying to fucking figure out what I'm going to eat that night. I enjoy eating the same food every day. I like routine. I like things to be the same. It's when I'm taken out of my comfort zone and the unexpected is where I kind of lose my shit. Maybe V is like that. Have you ever thought about that? Mrs. This is different than having a quirk. Just saying, you know, my opinion. His diet is boring. Each and every day, my child eats the exact same foods he's deemed safe. Any other food is simply a wiggly worm we are forcing him to eat for no good reason. The amount of tears from both of us during meals is enough to probably fill a small pond in the field behind my home. It would likely be the first saltwater pond ever made from organic tears. Thing is, her husband works all day. She works all day. V is in daycare. She should not be saying we work. You rely on other people to raise your son. He gets no fucking educational stimuli from his parents because they're just two fucking alcoholics who sit on their asses. After 6 p.m, they need to start drinking, in my opinion, allegedly. We work diligently in therapy and in educating myself on oral aversion. I'm learning this is not something V will simply overcome. We will have to teach and hopefully encourage him about food being fun and not full of slimy worms trying to inhabit his adorable belly. We play with food. I believe that you are taking a diagnosis and trying to make it fit your son, rather than trying to understand your son. In my opinion, a lot of his issues with feeding stem from being born premature. Premature babies are the hardest to, just thinking that she's so unaware of this. And the doctors would have told her because she wouldn't have been breastfeeding. It would have been really hard and she would have had to sit there for hours for a premature baby to latch on. And she has an article saying that she breastfed V up until age 4. I've also read that. I'll link that below. It's disturbing. I believe that she stole that breastfeeding story from someone else. I've also read the article when I was on the verge of being an alcoholic. I'll link that below. And the timelines overlap. And time has never been something that Katie can keep track of. And in my opinion, this comes down to the drinking and the stimulant abuse of her medication. We play with food. We let him drive his motorcycles, Cheerios, through the mud, yogurt, hoping he become less averse to the food we introduce. Our goal is that one day he will not only touch the food, but also taste the food. We hope he will eventually want to feed himself the food, and that we won't be spending more than 3 hours a day on simply feeding him. Our goal is simple. We want V to enjoy food. We want him not to fear his birthday cake. We want him to view food positively and not like slithering worms trying to harm him. The worms aren't trying to harm him. In my opinion, you are subconsciously harming your child. Past and present tense. If we have to spend years doing this, I will work on it daily so he can be free of his fear of food. We will not let the worms win. We will not let the worms win. Katie, you are the worm. Katie, attention. Ding, 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 ding. Our goal is simple. To sit on our asses and have our son take care of himself. Katie Paulson, you are the worm.